So this is going to be a workshop. And how does a workshop work in a virtual conference? Well, I am going to try to go through a lot of examples how we do content strategy at 1x Internet and how we have been doing it. I'm going to try to show you examples. And I would actually love if it is possible to hear stories from you, all of you. And again, I would be really happy if you feel comfortable of putting on your video, then I can actually see you while I talk to you. But I also, no stress, and I also know that that's totally fine if you don't want to put on the video. You all have access to put on your video. You have access to actually speak. So feel free also to jump in and ask a question or anything like that. And I think we're just going to dive into this. Again, here, I want to make sure that even though you put on your photo and or image or you start to chat, don't feel obliged to be here for the whole 2 hours. Because this is a 2-hour workshop. It means that we are going to be going over a lot of content. And I don't expect that people after a whole day of a conference that they are going to hang out here for the whole 2 hours. If you do, then great work. If you don't, I totally understand it. So I'm going to be here for the 2 hours. But if you, like I said, if you need to drop out, just drop out and come by at our booth tomorrow and say hi if you want to chat about content strategy. So I think we can actually just start. And welcome to the workshop of your first steps to a successful content strategy. Very shortly about myself, I am, my real name is Bjarney Sonja Ólafsdóttir. And that's of course Ólafsdóttir because I'm the daughter of Olaf, who is my dad, his first name. But I got married to a German guy, Christoph, who might potentially be here if that's the Christoph that I think it is. And now I am actually Breidert, so I took away the Ólafsdóttir and to make it easier, I'm just called Buddy. I live in Iceland. I live in Frankfurt, and I'm from Iceland. My background is technical. I have a computer science degree, and I have a master degree in engineering management. So I'm also an owner and co-founder of 1x Internet. I'm a board member and treasurer of the Drupal Association. And I'm actually, when I have time for it, I'm teaching in the Technical University of Vienna. And what I'm teaching there is a little bit what we are going through today. It is about helping people to create better digital experiences. So if you want to reach out to me, I have an email, badisonja@1x Internet, or I'm on Twitter, badisonja, or on drupal.org, or wherever you can find me. And yes, that's what photos do to you. They make you look really fresh and like you're coming from the gym, right? And that's not how I look today because I've been sitting here in front of the computer all day. So thank you, Photoshop, for this. I see many people here in the workshop that are actually from the team 1x Internet. So thank you for joining. Anya, I see you here, and others. So we are a full service digital agency, and we are one of the leaders in the European market in development of web-based solutions based on Drupal. And what we are going to be talking about today is a little bit everything that we do in a sense. How do we build a web project, and how does content strategy play a big role in that? One of the things that I always like to mention, because I'm just so proud of it, is that our team are 45 people, and we speak actually, I think, over 20 languages, and it is actually not so common to be from Germany when you're working for our company. But Anya, who is here, for example, she is actually German and working in our company. So I'm really happy to have also people from Germany. But we are actually many of us from all over the world. So what are we going to cover in these 2 hours? We are going to cover what I think it is important to start with is general information about how do we execute web projects. And why am I going to talk about that? I am actually going to talk about the general information because I think it is important for you to understand why content strategy is important. So therefore, we are going to go through the basics of how do you execute a web project. Then we are going to go into the content strategy part a bit, and we're going to go in a little bit into the history of what is changing in the internet today. Why do we also need to adapt to that? Then we're going to go into the user personas and user journey, and I'm going to show you templates. And so actually, because this is a workshop, I actually want you to have something that you can actually maybe start using in your next project. It doesn't mean that we are going to be doing it together. We would be doing it together if we were really together. But we are not together now. We are only virtually together. So I'm just going to have like a lot of Q&As in between, and then we are going to go into content templates. And this is something that our team has been working on. How do we create like content templates so we can create easier content? And then in the end, there's going to be a Q&A. So in between each section, we are also going to do Q&As and discussions, and I want to hear from you. And yes, we should do a break or something in between. So I suggest that we maybe at 5:15, we just take a 5-minute break or something, and we just go all and stand up and have a coffee or water or something like that. So to start off, again here, if you have any questions, I am looking at the chat in front of me. You can also ask a question, and that actually would be nicer. If you feel comfortable of just saying, hey, I have a question, then you can raise a hand. I think, can somebody try that? Can somebody try to raise a hand? Yeah, Christina raised a hand, like, okay. So Anja, I'm talking about like the Zoom hand, not your real hand. But of course, if I sorry, I'm losing it. But of course, if I see you, then of course, like you can also do this here. So are we ready to dive in? Are you all good? Everyone happy? So the option is not available. So Sarah, you should be able to raise your hand if you press, maybe somebody can help how you do that. So it's under participants.
Yeah,
See?
click on participants and then it will show an option to raise hand.
Yeah. Okay, again, for everyone who is joining now, feel free to put on your photo and your video if you feel comfortable doing that. And we are going to be jumping into the first part about general information. How do we execute web projects? So we are going to start with a traditional session about just how do we do it. And this is our circle for all of our web projects. Maybe you're familiar with some of these things. So we talk about that if you want to execute a successful web project, there is at least 10 things that you need to keep track of when you do that. And I'm going to go through every single one of them with you for us here to understand, like, what do we talk about as being a successful execution of a web project. Keep in mind something like creating the CMS or designing it, it's only point 6 and 7, meaning that the implementation part is very often like the one that people focus a lot on, but they forget that there's a lot of things that need to happen before if you're going to be creating something that people need. So we start with the business goals. So this is what we do when we meet our clients. We sit down with them and we say, like, why are you doing it? And how is that going to help your company to go forward? So we try to go with the client through that the business goal needs to be defined clearly. And very often, like the business goals of the site or the product that you're doing, that's most likely also derived from the overall business goal of the company. So what we start asking these questions, what are the goals of the website and how do they relate to the overall goals of the whole company? And how actually do you measure the success like of these goals? So if you have a project in front of you or you're working with a project, try to do this exercise where you actually just go through it and you think about, like, hey, how can we do this? Do you know this already about the project that you're doing? Most likely you do. And I like to use as an example, I like to use the Iceland Air, because I like using Iceland as an example because people remember that. And the Icelandair website is actually a very interesting website because the business goal of Icelandair is to bring a person from A to B. It's to sell seats in an airplane. So if we think about Icelandair, and if we're going to be using this example throughout our presentation here, that is the goal of their business, is to sell seats in an airplane to bring people from A to B. It doesn't matter from where. So in this case, Icelandair has, of course, their headquarters in Iceland, and they fly to all these areas. So there's a lot of things that they have to do. They have to create a lot of different content for that. So most important is to understand like that this is how an airline works. Maybe there's a little bit fewer lines today due to the pandemic, but still this is how it would look like in a normal day. So then we basically start diving into the content strategy of that website. And now let's always continue with the Icelandair example. And by the way, I'm not like, I do not get paid from Icelandair, I'm not sponsored by them. And they are also not our client. They are actually just an example, a random example that I like to use when I go through this. So to create a content strategy, you have to like plan the content based on what the goal of the website is. So on one hand, it must be a very useful content for humans like us. But at the same time, it actually also needs to be very useful for search engines. So you have to start thinking about very many different aspects. It has to be accessible. It has to be visual. It needs to be a lot of content, so search engines will find you. So you start to think about what are the content sections of the website. How do you break down the content? What are the main landing pages? How do you have overview pages? How do you do your menu structure? Is there any cross-linking strategy for the landing pages? And interestingly, we talk about it for the city of Reykjavik, that we say like every single page is an important page. So it is not just your start page, the page where you think that everybody come to, but actually all of the other pages on the site, they are extremely important because normally people come and they land on those pages. So when we talk about landing pages, that's the, where the airplane lands on that. That's you as a user. You come and you land on this page. So therefore you should get the information that you need. So if we think about that for Icelandair, we have like these landing pages for like skiing in Whistler. We have a landing page for the Barcelona vacation and so on. And regardless of what it is, like you have to have different photos, you have to have different images, you have to have different content, and so on. So when you're finished with doing your content strategy, and by the way, we are going to go into deep diving about how we are going to do that actually, but then we go and look at the user audience. So you look, of course, like who are the personas that come on your website? And I would actually like to ask a question now. Who here, and you can raise your hand or something like that or do this, who here has already done a persona analysis on a website or on your own website? Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. So many of you. It's actually important because I don't want to go into too much detail. Like, I have a lot of content on it and maybe I'm going to go faster a little bit through it later. So most important is this is what normally one of the first things that people do, to think about the personas. And if we go and think about the personas for Icelandair, we can immediately think about 4 personas. One being the family that is going to be buying seats to go from A to B. Then there is the young couple. Then there is the business traveler. And then there is the pensionist. And if you start to look at that, and we saw earlier Barcelona being a destination, You know, you probably you start to imagine, how do I build up a content that fits actually to all these personas, or do I actually need to create different content for every single persona? Because showing the beach for the family is, you will probably show completely different photos for the family that you would actually show for the young couple who's probably going there to have a little bit more fun in the bars, while the family is going to, you know, be playing maybe with the kids there. Does anyone have a question? Because I see still hands up. Was it just because you were raising them, or? I know you're quick putting it down. Leslie, are you gonna ask a question? No. Feel free to if you want to. So what I was actually explaining there is that, you know, you have, you know, you start to segment your content into being like, we thought about a family trip going to Barcelona or young couple in Barcelona. So as soon as you start to do the persona analysis, you also start to think about like the content strategy before, what am I going to show? And then you start actually to build up these segments. Being in Whistler, that's in Canada, for Diego and Mike, you know, using the Whistler example, there's obviously going to be a difference if you're going to there as a family or if you're going as a young couple, because you will just immediately show different photos or different content for that. So therefore, then we start to think about the user journey. So we need to plan the user journey and the content personalization. So what we were looking at is like the personalization. So what do we show for whom? So users, they will navigate the content of the website very differently. And we want to plan this as much as we can. And by the way, we will find out probably in the end that it's going to look different than what we expected. So therefore, we try to build this up based on the segments and all of that. And again, here, you know, the segments can actually overlap. And I want to give you as an advice, please don't overcomplicate things for your website, right? You can so easily start to create like all kinds of different variation, and then at the end you think like you have to probably hire 50 people to do the content for your website. That's not our goal today, but our goal today is at least to figure out, I always say at least 2 personas are important. I think for 1X Internet, our company, I think we have 5 identified personas. You can actually, we will actually look at a couple of personas for our agency later on. So when you start to plan the content, and now I'm actually showing you, so I tried to play around here a little bit, and I created like different content based on what you're doing. So if you, for example, here you're going skiing in Whistler, you know, depending on, you will show different tours, you will show different hotels depending on what user persona you're actually trying to target. And you will potentially also put in a little bit different texts. And you will maybe focus for the young couple, you will maybe focus a little bit less expensive hotels, while maybe for the elderly, you know, senior people going there, they maybe have a little bit more money in their hand. So you would target like a little bit more expensive hotels for them. So therefore, depending on that, like, you know, that's actually what I was saying, that you would actually think about, you know, what am I going to show in which case if I'm going to do a different content, or if you want to personalize it and actually just like inject different things in different places. So we covered already 4 things in the whole overview of how do when we haven't even started to create any UX, we haven't even started to create any design. You know, we have definitely not started to set up any Drupal because we were here in DrupalCon. But there's a lot of work that needs to happen before. And it's a little bit, we talked about that in some workshop yesterday, chicken egg problem, because somebody says, but how can I do content for something that I don't know how it's going to look like? And then the UX designer says, yeah, but how can I do a UX design for a content that you don't even know what it's going to be? If anyone has a good answer to what you should do first, let me know. But we think that this is the right way. We still often figure out that that you need to have a really good guidance with the client throughout the first phase, and the client not necessarily has a budget for it all the time, because they often have a budget for the more development part and the UX part and the design. But we try to guide them in a way that say like, hey, keep a little bit of budget for this part to start with. So now let's look at the UX. So I'm going to go a little bit quicker through this. Not going to show that much examples, but creating UX is also crucial. We always talk about like doing wireframes before we do the design. Wireframes are important because like you can start actually injecting content in there. So you can start creating your content even before and start to play around with real content before you start to define how it is going to look like in the end. Then it goes into the design part and the front end. So we like to split the front end from the back end, not being decoupled, but we at least like, you know, our front end, we can start front end by using something like Storybook or Pattern Lab and start creating all the templates before actually we start to do the back end, or the other way around. So to continue on that, like, you know, here we also talk about like things in the front end, like, are we doing performance thing correctly? Is accessibility requirements already defined? Our browser requirements defined? Our resolution requirements defined? Our device requirement defined? And one of the things that I feel really helpful is to ask the client, like, what devices are you using in your company? Sometimes when we forget that, and we all figure out afterwards, like, oh, they're all using Internet Explorer, you know, or the boss is always using this big iPad, which sometimes causes a problem too. And that is the person that actually needs to pay the bill in the end. So we need to really make sure that we ask those questions before we start designing. And I see from Mike, maybe you can tell us a little bit about this after in the discussion and Q&A, you know, your GitHub thing. But let's go through that a little bit later. So we are at step 7, and step 7, like, we probably are all very familiar to, because that's the Drupal part, right? Now we need like a modern backend system to, you know, we need a CMS. Again, here we need to think about things like, is the user interface of the backend defined? How are the editors going to be using the thing? And going through a persona with the editors is as important as doing the personas for the users, for the website. Because you can only have a successful web project if the people that are putting in content on that can actually use it. So I am actually curious, because I hear that Mike needs to go, and I'm really happy to have him here in the chat. Mike, do you want to say hi to us, and do you want to show this? I'm really happy to go and jump here a little bit between. I'm going to share, because you need to go to another session, right?
Yeah, in a bit. I just wanted to go off and say that there's a lot of effort to try and include people with disabilities in personas, and even if you're not necessarily looking at people with permanent disabilities, if you're only selecting 5 people, it's much easier to actually expand it to look at people who have temporary or situational disabilities. So somebody who wants to go off and to book their flight on their phone on a sunny day, and they're outside trying to book their flight, or they're trying to manage that, but they don't have ideal lighting conditions, or somebody's broken their wrist and they're trying to go into type single-handedly on the website to find the information with their non-dominant hand. There's ways to build in that creativity so that we're getting people to think about accessibility through the process of defining a persona, and helping people realize just the breadth of accessibility challenges that people have.
Oh, thank you so much. And for those, if you don't know Mike is very involved in everything related to accessibility in the Drupal project as well. So thank you for that, Mike. And thank you for sharing this. So I'm actually curious. I have one question for you, Mike. So I have heard something about a number of like 25% or 30% of like users have some kind of a disability. What are the percentage, like the correct percentage?
It depends on who's gathering the stats, but the U.S. government has put it as 1 in 4, so about 25% of people have a permanent disability. And there's different stats whether you're looking at the United Nations and how you define a disability, but there's a wide range. And unfortunately, one of the sad things one of the other sad things about COVID is that there are actually going to be people who have long-term disabilities because of COVID, and that's something that we haven't really thought through enough about. What are the long-term effects of people who've gotten COVID and are still trying to will be suffering from it from years afterwards.
Correct. We also have a client who is also in, experiencing something similar, and they are actually talking about similar things. So thank you so much for sharing this, because I think this is extremely relevant and for all of the, not just doing the personas and doing that correctly in the beginning, but also like reviewing this when you are doing your back end or your front end or your, UX and design. Just make sure that you always keep this in mind. So very good input. So see, if like more of you, this is a workshop again. So if you have input in any way or questions, let me know. So the next step, we go into the number 8. That is actually what we say, like creation of the content. And that could actually be like I'm migrating the content from somewhere, or I'm already starting to create it and so on. So that is also like, we can start putting in the content, and we normally do it before. And here we also like think about like, are the formats all correctly? And we all know how it is, like just showing like DrupalCon, doing all this Twitter thing, you have to have different photos for Twitter, you have to have different photos for Facebook and LinkedIn, and then on your website is different. So like my UX art director, she's like creating, I don't know how many different types of photos so they actually can make sense. So you have to also, when you produce the content, you have to go into that as well. So now comes to the part where we think about like, okay, and now we have done all this groundwork and we are ready to go. And what do we do then? Then actually we should, and if you're not doing it already, we should start measuring the results, and we start putting up the tracking. And I am actually happy to see a couple of people from our like Anya and Rina from our online marketing team. They could actually talk a little bit more about this, but so setting up the tracking is maybe the simple thing to set it up. So you have to add a snippet, right? Google Tag Manager or something. That's the easy part. But configuring it is not an easy thing. And now there's coming something called Google Analytics version 4, I've heard, which is like completely different how you actually track things there. Everything is based on events. And you also need to understand how to use these tools, being like Matomo or being Google Analytics or being whatever you're using. So you have to think about this in a perspective, or like, is there a tracking strategy defined for all the user journeys? And do we have goals? Like, do we want to measure the downloads of something? Do we want to see how people scroll down? Or how do we want to measure the content that we're putting on our website? So is the data like, is it prepared for analysis? Or like very often when we take over Google accounts, for example, we see that there's like everything is in there, there's all the traffic from everyone is in there. The bots are just like messing up with the traffic and so on. So we need to clean that up as well. And then, of course, based on all the data that we have, we, of course, want to run monthly analysis. And we need to gain the insights if the business goals of the website are being met. So we need to like create like, what is a good report? What should be included in the report? And are we actually then getting out of it what we need? So looking at the last slide and seeing the 10 going back into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4. This is like where we start to verify, are we doing the right thing? Therefore, I always want to see this as a you know, we cannot be out there telling our clients that we are going to be doing a project for 50,000 euros and then you're going to get it and that has all of this and then goodbye. You know, we need to also in the process when we speak to our clients, or if you are an end user asking an agency to work with you, that we need to like be aware of that this is an iterative process, because based on what we find out then in the end, you know, were all our assumptions that we did in the beginning, were they correct? And most likely the answer is going to be no. And we need to then be able to like iterate on it, because we can't know it all beforehand. So normally we see that after a year or so, the client, or like 8 to 10 months, the client comes and normally says like, hey, we need to do a little bit of changes. We've seen like that this is not working and this is not working, even though we thought it was the best idea to start with. So prepare yourself if you're doing a project that you should actually like be able to iterate on it if you can. So that's how you should actually plan your web project. So I always talk about it like this, that then like we should start small. Let's not try to like win in the first run, you know, and do it perfect, because if we try to do that, then we will probably never go live with our first site. So let's just start small. Let's just iterate on it. And because as soon as we go a little bit further, we start realizing that like, and now I'm making the example of going into the content strategy again, like that there's more than Whistler and Barcelona. You know, we have like 50 more destinations to cover. We have 16 different languages. We have like many more. We have the business travel that we have to think about, that wants to do everything quick on the website and book very many flights. Then we have like the expiration of segments. And the expiration of segments is something that is interesting, where we need to think about like, okay, the business traveler is interested in Barcelona today, but as soon as the person has like bought the ticket, the person starts to think about like going to Seattle or something like that. So I'm sorry, here's a little bit noise here, but okay. So if we start to iterate a little bit more, there's like, then you have like, of course, like much more than only this website. You also have like all of your marketing activities that you have to start thinking about. You have like the newsletters and the ad campaigns and the social media. And then you have people that like text. But I know I like reading, but my husband, he likes looking at video. You know, he wants to get information by looking at quick videos. Well, I like to have, or the opposite, like just making fun, you know. So if you start to think about this, like this becomes a big, you know, like, oh my God, how am I going to do it? I'm only one person doing marketing in my company. How am I going to accomplish this? So don't worry. That's why we start small. And if we figure out that we can, you know, we can be smarter and do a little bit more, then we can just actually, you know, we can get more people to help us. So this was like the first part. I am going to, for the Q&A discussion, I'm actually going to go back into this picture here. And I would be really interesting to hear from you, really you can ask questions, please. Does anyone want to discuss something or ask about something? Yeah, Heike?
Yeah, I would like to know how many people are involved in the whole cycle, or how many different departments. Can you tell more about that?
So that, of course, depends really on the size of the project, right?
Sure.
So I would assume for Iceland there, it's probably a lot of people. But in a mid-size project, and I would say maybe because I also know your project, for example, Heike, you know, a big website dealing with, you know, au pairs and you know, helping families to find au pairs and all this stuff. Probably, if you want to do that really successfully, you would probably have at least at least one person or even two people taking care of the first 4 steps. Normally you have like a one person doing the UX design, and then you have developers, or then maybe, you know, 4 or 5, 6, you know, and then 1, 2 people in, or one person doing the tracking and so on. So I'm talking about full-time equivalent. I'm not talking about people, and like I'm talking about how much effort. So we see that. So in how we set up our projects, we normally have at least like a couple of days per month for online marketing. So maybe 5 days per month. And then for the first part, like we try to do a couple of workshops, and these workshops have definitely a, you know, a UX designer, content strategist, or a solution architect there that understands the business and helps with, you know. And then the development team is, of course, like dependent. It can also be like one developer, you know, it's difficult to say, but. Any more questions?
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, Christina, hi.
Hi. Yeah, I have a question about how you do the personas before you do after you do content strategy, because yeah, it's like the hen egg problem you mentioned later on. I was like, wait.
Yeah, I know, and I think we struggle a lot with this part. And actually, we have like thought about if we should just put 2, 3, and 4 together, of that being one thing. Do you know what I mean? Because I'm not necessarily, you know, I think you have it correct, Christina. You know, it's not necessarily I start here and go here and go here. Okay, user journey you need to do after user persona. But I agree with you there that maybe we could actually put this picture a little bit different. Yeah. Ifrik, Antje.
Yeah, I've been wondering, you started with the different personas, and then you mentioned the boss of the company with the big iPad where you need to make it look right for as well. And I come across that problem as well before, that we've defined personas for an organization, and then the funder comes who has a very specific need, and they still needs to be targeted. Does it make sense to actually then have that kind of decision maker also as a persona, at least somewhere hidden away in your mind?
I think, yes, I think so. We normally, in the kickoff, all the way in the start, we put this on our it's like on our risk document. You know, being like, who is going to be the one who is actually making decisions in the end of like paying the bills, or you know, because and what type of a person is that? You know, because that person can actually be really difficult in the end, right?
Yes. Okay, thanks.
Yeah. We had a question from, yeah, we can just, who will be next? Why can I not have your, yeah, I know, why? I'm trying to see how I can see your name, and anyhow. Hi, Stefan. No, now I see your name, Stefan.
Yeah. Yeah, it belongs a little bit to the question before, or not. Yeah, it's not directly a question, but we also have this issue sometimes. For example, that the funder for this project has some special browser needs also, or also the marketing company which which sells the ads, and they have some customers with some special browsers and so on. But I think this is sometimes very difficult, because when they use, for example, the Internet Explorer, which provides not all the stuff, and then we build all the necessary stuff into the websites, that makes them slow because all of the polyfills and so on. And yeah, after this, they said, oh, why our website is so slow? And I don't get why it is not possible to say to them, please use a modern browser stack like all your visitors for the website, because you have to check your website like the most of your visitors. You get, for example, the information from your tracking software or from your logs, that
Exactly.
you see, oh, your visitors are using mostly the most common or the latest releases of the browsers, why you try to solve all the layout and JavaScript issues for the old browsers for 1 or 2 people. And yeah, I think this is really horrible in some projects.
Yeah, I think, and this goes actually into your content strategy as well. Like we often see also the marketing people, they want to have like all this stuff, like they saw something on the Apple website that does something and like all these great things, but they don't have the content for it as well, you know? So we often, like as developers, if we are developing the thing, we spend a lot of time of creating something that actually nobody can actually use, right? So goes into all direction. Did Sarah or did anyone else have a question? Because otherwise we can actually just continue a little bit. We're gonna have more time for more questions. Is that okay? Yep, I'm gonna think about, so okay, where are we now? Like now I want to just to put the ground, you know, like that we all have the same understanding of what do we define as being a good project to execute, and how should that be done, and who should be involved in it. Again, like to Heike's question earlier, you know, there's not necessarily always the budget to actually do everything right. So maybe sometimes you have to start creating the website before you start thinking about that. So you can also iterate in any direction. So now I'm gonna go a little bit into the, like a little bit this physical, like how do you say, like, why is it important? And now I'm just going to talk about like a little bit of general things. And I want to actually just take you all back to, you know, if I look at the photos here of, you know, maybe you will all remember this with me, right? When we had TVs. And back in the days when we had TVs, they were like, actually, it was completely controlled what we were allowed to see when, depending on what was on TV. And there were ads coming. So you probably all remember waiting for the news coming, or you remember the animation show that was before news. And in between there came like, you know, the ads. And I sometimes miss it a little bit because I feel like I'm actually missing out of like things that I'm not interested in because I don't see any ads anymore. I'm only on Netflix, you know, that I pay for. Because that's the life today. You know, everything is digital, and this is what we are actually all in this industry. And what is interesting to see is that the estimated daily TV and internet consumption, you know, in 2019, more people were using internet to consume information than the TV. And probably like all of you know, I don't know, is any one of you that actually, I'm in Germany and I know that many of you are in Germany, you know, does any one of you like just turn on ARD and you just watch it all day? Probably not, right? And this is just what is happening. So therefore, the importance of the content strategy for your website or your web project is getting extremely important, because people, users, expect to see information that is relevant to them because otherwise they will just leave. And this gets really tricky for us in our business because, wow, am I then going to personalize everything? How can I do that? You know, that gets even more complicated. But this is what the users, and especially the young people, and I see this in my son, he's 10 years old, and, you know, I see how they are just like on the web and how they just, if it doesn't fit them now, they're just going to go and look at the next one. And this is how they're going to be behaving when they come on your website too in 10 years from now. So what do I mean by that? It means like that depending on where you know, this is the same Netflix account. This is the Netflix account of my family. But when you log in as my son and my daughter, you see what you have there on the left side. But when you log in as me and my husband, you see what you see here on the right down. So obviously, like Christo and I, we were watching The Last Dance there with Michael Jordan, which is a great documentary. And, you know, you see a little bit what we are interested in. And the same time, like the kids are watching something else. So like we are even on the same platform. We even go in the same place and we see completely different things. Of course, the same goes for my Spotify account. obviously my daughter and my son, they got into my account, so therefore I get the, you know, die drei Fragezeichen, which is like a children's show. But obviously, like, I am a little bit more interested in, like, you know, some nice songs. And of course, the same thing is about my Amazon account. So everywhere I go, things are just being targeted to me. And I'm starting to expect this, which is really weird. And I don't know if you have the same feeling. You know, you go there and you actually just expect to get the information that you want to have. And this is also how you start to behave when you start to go on websites. If you go on the website and you immediately, I go a lot to the newspaper websites. And if I see like something that I'm not interested in, I'll just go on the next newspaper website. So this is something about like what is relevant to whom. And if you look at the persona, and let's talk about like me generally. You know, I normally have like a general interest and I have a current interest. So me, the persona, being like maybe 40-year-old woman with a computer science background, working in an agency, that maybe is me as a persona. I have a general interest, and my general interest is that I'm interested in digital strategy. I'm interested in digitalization, technology, Drupal, of course. But the current interest is like, how does COVID-19 test work today? Because I want to travel to Iceland. So I want to go to Iceland. So actually the only thing I'm looking for at the moment is just COVID-19 tests. You know, where do I do them? Can I do it here and then fly over? Do I have to do it in Iceland and so on? So like, even for somebody who is what we talked about before, I'm a 40-year-old woman. I have 2 kids and I work in an agency. I am suddenly like interested in something that you maybe would have not expected that I'm interested in at the moment. So that can change a lot. And my current interest is probably going to be, you know, maybe the current interest today is actually Drupal, if I would be really honest, and like watching the trees note, getting inspired by that. And tomorrow it's going to be the COVID-19 test. So what we see is like we have very many different stakeholders in this whole content strategy part, and we have different people. And there are 3 things that I want to give with you that I would like, you know, to think about in your next web project. Number 1 is actually, so these graphics are taken from the City of Reykjavik design language system. So we are currently rebuilding the new website for the City of Reykjavik. And one thing is we need to understand the user, and we need to understand what is the user going to accomplish on our website. That's number 1 that I think that we need to focus on. So from being very confused of like, you know, hey, where should I go and why should I, you know, how can I find this and whatever it is, into being understood. I come to your page and I feel being understood. You know, you are helping me. It's not about me. The website should not be put up in a sitemap in folders. The website should be put up in a way like, how can I help you? Because I'm understanding you. So this is about the understanding the user, and that's why we put the focus on the personas and the content strategy. But we also need to understand the editor, the person who is going to be creating the content. Because if that person does not know how to create content and how to build that up, then we are not going to be able to understand the user. So we need to do persona analysis on our editors. Who are they? What are their background? How do they create content? Like, what do they know? Are they already, do they feel comfortable with the CMS system? Do they need training? Do they, you know, how do they feel? And last but not the least, you know, we need to stay in budget. And now I'm actually focusing on like, if we figure out that we need to understand the user, we need to know that we need to understand the editor who is using the website and creating content. But this all needs to fit into some kind of a bucket that has a budget. And that is the most complex part of it, because I can say yes to everything, which this woman is doing on the picture. And I can tell and advise the client to do everything we think about and being the most awesome, you know, having the best strategy, content strategy that I've seen. But if that doesn't fit into the budget, and being able to be reusable and flexible, and using the same elements and all of that, then we have failed. And maybe I'm missing something here. Maybe I'm missing some person, or So, thoughts? What are you thinking? What do you want to share with us? Anybody in the group? Because we are doing a workshop, we need to work, right? Should I start doing random questions here? Do you agree with this, or do you feel that, do you sometimes, I'm actually curious to hear, do you think about the editor of the website, who is the marketing person who is going to be creating the content? Do you think about that, or? Yeah, Christina?
Yes, but the problem is to get everyone else to think about them. From the developers who are like, it just has to work, to actually the customer himself, because often the editors in the end are not the ones who are initializing a project. So they are not thinking about it. We try to get into contact with them, so with the editors, to get this information, but it can be really hard sometimes.
Yeah, and you're working, so you're also working for an agency. You're actually doing very similar things than what I'm doing at work, right?
Yes,
yeah.
Basically.
Yeah, Jürgen, I see your face. Do you want to share something with us, Jürgen?
I think talking about editors, there are probably two aspects to that one, because one component is understanding the workflow for editors, and the second piece is understanding where they are coming from personally. So what skill level do they have? What experience do they have with technology? And I think, to be honest, most of the time we expect editors to learn with regard to the second aspect. So if they are not capable yet or not experienced yet, most of the time they are expected to learn. But what's also important is, what is the purpose of their role? So where do they get the information from? How quickly do they have to publish? What are the components? Where, how do they have to prepare? Is there a review process and all that sort of stuff? And I think that's equally important to their personal skills.
Yeah, 100%. And Ifrik?
Yeah, I also think actually concentrating on the editor experience is an important step for most of the sites I'm working on, because they're quite often the people that use the site daily or several times a week, while most of the visitors come much less often. So taking into account that what we're doing is actually building a tool that they have to spend their 8-hour workday with, I think is really important. So therefore also creating extra admin pages to be able to do their job, and reducing the amount of onboarding that the editor needs, especially when you might have worked with an editor and they know how it works, and then they go on holiday or they have new staff and they don't get that training. And you come back to the site like sometimes half a year or a year later, and you realize that they haven't actually used one of the things that you built, because the next editor didn't even know it existed. So I think editor experience is a very important persona as well.
I think that's you're so much echoing stuff that we are hearing and we are experiencing. And sometimes I feel like that. I actually feel like that the editor is the one that we forget that we tend to forget very quickly, or not forget, is not think about. And I sometimes even I would sometimes like to send the developers to let them create content. So like as a like what are you building? Why are you building it like this? Like have you ever tried to use it?
That's actually what we're trying to do, is that the content that goes into the test site is real content. Yeah. And if that means you're copying content from, for example, an existing site when you build a new one, They actually know what's going in there. It's not a lower Ipsum bit that you can copy or just typing in a few keys. It's the, okay, yes, this really needs pictures that are sometimes in portrait and sometimes in landscape or so, and actually spending the time and putting that in an earlier step, I think usually gives quite a good feedback already as well from the developer to the developer.
Yep, 100%. So advice, give your developers assignments sometimes to create like content. Clara, I see that you're chatting, Clara. Do you want to share something with us, Lou?
Yes, in fact, working with the editors is hard as long as you're you don't have a minimum viable product to show them and to go through it with them. So we're just 1 week ago we showed the first iterations of our Drupal 8 website with paragraphs, and yeah, it's a huge distance between the UX designers who have ideas for how to use this type of content, this block, and yeah, they had talked with editors about it, but they hadn't accomplished anything in preparing them for the fact that they would have to use paragraphs. So you have this content type, you have this paragraph in it, and yeah, we'll have to hide the title from the paragraph block because for them it's impossible to have two titles and work with that. And yeah, we're making we're gonna make a book for them, a recipe book for how to make pages, because otherwise it won't work. Yeah. So what the designers made, we'll have to translate that for them.
And to give us a little bit of context, so you're working for the Flemish government. So
yes, we're working for the Flemish government. We have already moved our intranet and extranet to Drupal 8. So now we're doing the website, and so the content team, which is the biggest team working on that, they'll have to prepare for doing their content work in Drupal 8. There'll be lots of personalization, so we'll need those paragraphs to be able to put in the right widgets into the content. So yeah,
exactly. So I feel like, yeah, Christina.
Actually, about introducing paragraphs, I actually saw a session yesterday about sketching, where they basically went and had a workshop and used index cards as paragraphs and tried to build websites with the editors to introducing the concept of how to do that.
And this was happening yesterday in DrupalCon?
Yes, it's
that's nice. Yeah.
I think in the afternoon, I think at 3 or something. I'm not sure which time it started was.
Yeah.
So I want to I really thank you for the interaction here, because and everyone else in the call here, feel free to come in as well, because this is exactly how we need to have these sessions, because we need to learn from each other. So this is going to be a 2-hour thing. So we have already been now for 1 hour here, and I'm going to allow just everybody just to stretch yourself, So let's take a maximum 5-minute break. I'm going to be here still, So let's take a little break, and so you can go and grab yourself water or take a break, just and let's see each other here in 4 or 5 minutes. Is that okay? It's now 1/4 the hour. So we're going to be in 20 past, and we're going to start the deep diving into the user persona. Okay? Is that good? See you in a bit. Have yourself water or something else. So we're starting again in like 2-3 minutes. So therefore, if anyone just joined now, then we're just taking a small break. And I actually realized that I could actually show you something more from what I was talking about in the DrupalCon Global. So that was browsing around. So 2-3 more minutes. So is anyone else also just missing just having a little coffee break and just chat with somebody else? Like the coffee breaks are getting really silent, right? Right?
Yeah, but the hallway track sessions are certainly enjoyable. Just
That's
5
correct.
minutes talking to some people and then 5 minutes talking to the next group of people. So that replaced the coffee breaks, I think.
Yeah, so we changed it actually. So yesterday, I don't know if you noticed it, probably you did. Like yesterday, the hallway track was like a 15-minute thing and predefined groups and stuff. So that was like a, you know, we said like yesterday, I think the Kony team said like we need to change this, and then today it has been much more fun.
I tried one, and it was like only the plus 4 years DrupalCons,
Yes.
and I was alone. I tried the second time, I was still alone.
It takes a moment before the rest of the people appear in the group. So you need a little bit of patience.
I'm actually just preparing a couple of things because I think like it's sometimes good to see that when we have like interactive things that we can also a little bit change around them. Yeah, see, now I don't even have an access. So Diego, if you can give me access somehow, then let me know. But we're just going to start again, and I see that Peter is, he just landed, he said, and we have already talked about general information of how to execute web projects, and we've talked about why content strategy is important, and now we're going to start looking at user personas, user journeys, and content templates, and we need to do that a little bit quick. So I'm actually going to do it a little bit quick through the user personas. And for the reason that many of you actually raised your hand and you said that you have already experience with it. And I have a lot of content on it. So I am actually going to go into the content that I think it is important. Let me start a little bit still in the beginning here. So let's look at user personas. This is like it's very big, Kazi, in front of me here. So a buyer persona is actually a semi-fictional representation of your ideal customer based on market research and real data about your existing customers. So like I told you before, a persona is not like, you know, Buddy, who is 40-year-old and whoever I am. Actually, it is a person that is maybe 40-year-old and it is a person who has this type of a background and so on. So the reason why we do it is it is because it provides you structure and context for your company to make it easier for you to map out content and to achieve, like, you know, the stuff that you need to do for your website and so on. So using the time to learn about your ideal customer, and think about this as well. You know, spend time on figuring out your ideal persona, but you should also think about the persona that you maybe want to spend less time on. So you also they are differently important for you as a company. So you think about their challenges, their goals, their demographic situation, and so on. And that actually helps you to set the strategy around, like, who do you want to focus the most on? And who is going to be in the end your top persona. And it will sometimes surprise you that when you go through these exercises, that the persona that you will end up with, that's maybe not necessarily the persona that you are actually today creating content for. So how many personas should you have? Depending on your business, you could have like 1 or 2 personas. You could also like have 10 or 20, like we looked at the, the Iceland Air. But if you're just new to it, start small. Start with doing 2, 3 personas for your project. And don't worry, you can always develop more and add to it. So like I said before, you know, you want to maybe do this ideal one and the negative one. So you want to actually think about it in both ways. You want to think about like who is the one that you want to engage with, engage with your company, but you also maybe want to think about like who do you not that much want to, have as a customer, if that is the case. So how to use this? This will allow you to create the content that appeals to them, which is hopefully your target audience. So I don't know about you, like, it depends on the project, what you want to look at. Like, does education matter? Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. Does it matter where the person is coming from? Does it matter if it is a man or a woman or unidentified? Doesn't matter the age. It really depends on your project. So think about that in the beginning, what actually is important for you and what is it that you want to focus on. And I can show you the personas that we have developed for our company. And we are, again, like a digital agency. So we are creating web projects for end users. So what you are going to do too, you're going to give the personas a name. And we refer to the names a lot. So when we prepare stuff for Drupal Europe, we actually we focus on saying like, for whom is it? And we actually have 2 personas in mind when we create a marketing material for DrupalCon Europe. So one of the personas that we have is called David, and he's the senior developer in a company, maybe the Flemish government. I'm looking at Clara here. And he's actually coming to like one of our sessions like this, and he gets really interested in the technical things that we are doing. And therefore he goes back to Clara and says to Clara, hey, Clara, we need to work with 1x Internet. So when we think about how we do a marketing material for our company, for DrupalCon Europe, for example, we think about the personas. So it's not just about for your website, but it's also for like, how do you do things? So in that case, David is an important one for us. Or Robert. Robert is the head of IT. And we also have really cool women as our personas. They are actually the ones that, the in charge of like a business development in the company and so on. So you need to choose like a gender and age, or you can do that. It makes like it's just easier. So like, what we tried to like avoid was like unintentional gender or age biases and stereotyping. Well, the 2 examples that I gave you, they were both like very stereotyping examples. But Tamara, she is actually a developer too, who is actually attending DrupalCon and is one of our a developer who is one of our personas as well. So we choose a name and we talk about we research like, what it is that the person is doing, and let's just go and look at it. We define the strengths and the weaknesses of them, and we actually do a visualization of that person. And we put it, the best would be in one A4, like one document, one PDF. So this is an example that could be a persona. So this could be, this is not a persona for our company. This is just a random photo that I found somewhere online. So a persona could be named George. He's a man, age 31, interested in food, travel, and communities, loves cooking homemade food. Goal is to help others to learn how to cook, and he's good in connecting with others, and he's tolerant, and he's a little bit vulnerable to criticism and too selfless and so on. I put a link here to HubSpot.com, make my persona. And I actually encourage you, I'm going to show you that briefly before we go into Robert, who is actually one of our personas. I'm going to show you this because this is just a really cute tool that helps you to make this a little bit nicer. I'm going to give you the link here in the chat. If you don't have graphic designers in your company, then this like does it a little bit. So I want to like I want to build my persona. So I can give it here a name. It could be here, Buddy. And the avatar is this here. And then I go to the next step and so on. And I say like, how old is Buddy? And, you know, what is she doing? And so on. I go through this, and in the end, you actually, you know, you end up with a persona that you could use in your company that looks like this. So this is just a really nice tool that you can do if you don't have graphic designers to work with, and you can build it up. So check that out. There are probably more tools out there. If you know about any, let us know. So that is how you build up your personas. And I am going to show you two personas that I just took randomly from our persona analysis for our company. And we are a digital agency, and maybe some of you are also working in a digital agency. So this is a persona that we are really familiar to. So Robert, he is the head of IT. He's a male, 45-year-old, has a bachelor degree in IT, 20-year experience, married, teenagers. And he is actually the single point of failure for the IT operation in the company. And he, you know, he doesn't like to take risks. And his challenges, and this is again like focused on our company as One X Internet. So his challenges are actually he's spending too much time on solving urgent IT problems. He has an aging infrastructure. He's lacking resources. He's not having budget. He's lacking reliable IT suppliers, which is like ours. He has too many requirements from too many departments, and he is actually having lack of investment from management. You know, the management thinks about him as being like, yeah, this is just IT. You know, like he just gets this money what he has, but he is like living in this digital world. So his goals are actually to find a reliable partner to work with, to outsource some of his work, to decrease his stress level, to stabilize and simplify his IT operations and modernize it. So we also put out our metrics being like, what is his technology understanding? So when we build content for him, what, you know, does it have to be like a high quality technology driven content, or, you know, experience, decision power is obviously like he's normally the one who actually can just say like, this is what I need, and he will be listened to. Relatively conservative budget, he has like in the middle somewhere. Friendliness, you know, hey, he's like turning off fires. He's just, you know, like, what do you say, turning off fires everywhere. So extremely tired in that sense. But he has a lot of organizational impact. And in this case, we're talking about a medium-sized company. He reports to the CEO, he has a team, and he has responsibilities. And this is how you actually contact him and reach him. So this is important for us to see and understand, like, where are we going to reach this person if we want to reach to him? You know, so most likely, because depending on how you look at it, Robert is just too busy turning off fires. So probably he's not going to be hanging out on Twitter, like, you know, he's just like, he's reading the newspaper in the morning. He's looking at this one tech thing, and then he maybe goes to 1-2 conferences. That's where we need to reach to him. So I'm going to show you another example of persona in our company. And I hope that you know, again here, you know, this is we're trying to do a workshop, but you know, like it's not so easy to do a workshop. Try to imagine this for your company, and you will get access to all these slides, so you can copy this and you can try to go through these exercises. And I really encourage all of you to do that after the workshop. So here we have Frank. And Frank is also in a position in his company, you know, that he's a head of marketing. And really interestingly, we see both these personas that come to us. It's the IT person, the head of IT, and it is the head of marketing, and they are completely different. Wow, they are so different, because the Frank is thinking about lead growth, getting better, change, make fast decisions. So if we look at him, he needs to, we look at the challenges and the goals. He needs to like make fast decisions, create customer-centric focus for the organization, stay on top of the fast-changing world. He needs to be like finding and keeping good employees because everything goes so quick, enable internal team, and deliver the best results. So he's normally like being focused on the KPIs, and like, it's like completely different from Robert. And his skills are just like his goals, are about like, executing the successful campaigns and like reach their personal bonuses. And this is how we often see this type tick. So when we talk to this persona, we need to like talk a lot about like how quick do you get to results and ROIs, and we need to like approach, if we want to reach to this person or persona, we need to speak to him completely different from how we speak to Robert. For Robert, we need to show like that we are calm and we are trustworthy and we are going to help and assist him. But for Frank, we need to be like, we are quick, we think for you, we are going to be like enabling you, you're going to have like 200% growth in next year. So in both cases, like they both go on our website, and but they come completely different to us, and we are going to look at that in the user journey. How do they reach to us? So for example, Frank, he is like, he's reading all the blogs, and he's on LinkedIn, and he's on Facebook, Instagram, everywhere. That's where he is, because he's trying to keep up with the pace. While Robert is not. Robert is much more conservative in a way of like, having less time. So that is about like personas. I hope that, we're going a little bit quick through this, but I actually wanted to check if I can actually look at the persona that we have. I can't find it. I have a persona also for the conference DrupalCon, but you can maybe imagine that's a senior developer. And if we look at the senior developer or the junior developer, or whatever developer it is, like they also tick very differently. So they want to learn, they want to grow. So developers normally want to like, so we need to show them that they can, if they join our company, that they will grow, and we will help them to grow in their job and so on. So any questions about this? A lot of content. Any thoughts? Because we yeah.
Is this exercise framed like if I am a small company? Is this about my clients and the people that my clients want to be serving? Is this about the people that I want to serve as an agency, or both? And in particular, I want to know, like, especially if you're a small organization, should you like think big and have different personas even beyond what you currently have? Like try thinking in growing your business?
Yeah. So in this case, these are just real personas for our business, for my company, like our company, 1x Internet. And so when we are trying to like sell our services, or we are trying to get like more clients, or that's how we look at it from our perspective. So even though depending on your size, like normally like there's somebody that you are talking to, or who is your ideal customer, right? So for us, like we normally speak either to a CTO or somebody in the IT, or we speak to somebody in the marketing department. So thinking about like, maybe say, the Flemish government would be like, the persona is the person who has children going to school and needs school service, or there's like somebody who needs like for the old elderly people or wherever it is, like just depending on who you are. Does that answer your question, Mauricio?
Yes, I was trying to get a sense of from which perspective you're writing the personas. Thank you.
Yeah. So this is exactly from these two personas are real personas for our company. So I'm actually, so if you look at the, let's see, the Reykjavik. So we have the, where is it? Is it Hanna or is it design? Maybe Diego here in the call knows. Design.Reykjavik, oh, that's the zero height. So in the city of Reykjavik, like this is already public, and so I know it is in Icelandic, but so in the city of Reykjavik, we can actually somewhere here find in the design system that they're doing, we can find actually the personas that they are using. And where are they? So for the city of Reykjavik, we would here it is. So a little bit like, maybe I can translate this. I'm going to show you these real personas here. No, it doesn't translate. Too bad. But if you just look at this one here, you have, in this case, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, you're 10, 11 personas. And Friðrik is, for example, 50 years old, married, has 3 children, has like a father that is has a disability and wants to do some new work at home, or like wants to build something, and he's going to connect to the city of Reykjavik because he needs to like get a building permit or whatever it is. Then you have like Edda, she's like an elderly woman and she wants to like find out things, what can seniors do in the city of Reykjavik as a senior. So if you go here, here's actually Siggi. Siggi is like even 90 years old. And he is also like, needs like taxi or like help to get around, and because he wants to be independent. And then you have Isak here, he's 4 years old, and Isak is even a persona. Isak is like, he just started kindergarten, and and he also like, is maybe not going to go directly on the website, but he's definitely a persona that the city of Reykjavik needs to think about, like, how can at least his parents, so some of them are going to be his parents here. Then you have here Guðni, who is like a, so to make it short, like these are just examples of, it's really nice to visualize these personas. I hope this idea is like helps a little bit. Here's Orri, he's uses a wheelchair and he is going to university, 23 years old. And when the city of Reykjavik is building content, they are always keeping these people in mind, like, for whom am I doing it for? Yeah, so sorry, Ifrik.
It's easier if you're in a company or a part of government as a specific group of people that you work for. As a city, you have to work for everybody in the city, which is very large. They need so many personas. For example, I work for a part of the Flemish government. I work for people who need a job and people who need people.
Yes.
And it's very more specific, like, or you're searching for a job, or you're searching for education to get a job, or you're some company that needs people. So it's like
exactly
smaller.
So yeah, I know. And for the city of Reykjavik, this work has been going on for more than a year now, just to do the content strategy before they actually started to work on the website. So Ifrik, you had a question too.
Yeah, because on the one hand, yes, the personas will help a lot in actually getting different types of users, like, and to keep in mind that they are there. But how do you avoid kind of falling into stereotypes or maybe having a too small base of personas? Is there a good way of making sure that you really catch also users that you hadn't thought of?
Yeah, you normally find that out. So I'm actually going to show you what happened to us. So we did working on a persona takes for us like at least a day. It took us for each persona in our company. Like it was 2 of us, and we were brainstorming about Robert, and we disagreed with some things, and had like our arguments about if Robert was really the right persona for us and so on. Then what happened is that we had 6 of those or something like that. And when we start to do the user journey, we start to realize that we could actually start to merge the personas again. So I think that to answer your question, you find that out a little bit on the way when you start like looking at their journeys. Yeah.
I didn't hear the part after you start to realize. Maybe
So you start,
like
we started to realize is that even though these 2 personas are very different for us, and we need to speak to them maybe in a little bit different language, how we are going to be reaching them is probably going to be still a very similar way. And then you find out like, oh, let's then just like start by creating one content and for all of them. So we start to merge the personas, or we start to add a new persona that we realize that we find somewhere else, and we see like, hey, actually this persona here, that is actually never for us relevant. So there are 2 more topics that I want to get over with you, and one actually what is in the end going to be really interesting for my part is actually the content templates, because I think like that's also something that you can maybe use directly. So I'm going to continue, so we have time in the end for questions, right? So user journeys, that is typically what you do next, and they tend to be sometimes, a lot of work to do. I feel like a lot of our clients, they have the personas there, but they don't have a user journey map, because this is very often a little bit harder part to do, because it takes a lot of time, because you need to think about their motivation when they come and engage with you. I need to think about their needs and their pain points. So let's look at this a little bit. The best way is actually to map this out, and this could be done with an Excel sheet, or or what we did, like you maybe saw also our persona. It's not that looking good. It's just because like Christo and we did most of it just at home, and we're not really good in doing graphical stuff. So the same is for the customer journey mapping. I'm going to give you a template for that as well. So how do you create it? You actually list out the touch points, and here you need to decide, do I want to start to list down the touch point of like, I'm in a conference and there I see maybe the company 1x Internet, and then I actually go on the website? Or do you want to like start on the website? Or where do you, what is the touch point? What is the beginning of your thing? And I'm just going to show you that. You think about the emotions and the motivations on the way. How is the person feeling? What is the emotional journey? What are the obstacles and the pain points? What is like stopping the persona to make decisions? So for example, one of your customers could love your product, but is abandoning the cart because it discovers an unexpectedly high shipping rates. What could be an obstacle? So highlighting these potential obstacles in the customer journey earlier could probably be like a better experience for the user, and you're going to end up getting somebody to buy. So, if you think about like what could be an obstacle. So we talked earlier about Robert, and Robert's user journey is just thinking about, remember, he is the CTO. He's like, he just doesn't have any time, and he's just, turning off fires all the time. So he is just at the moment, like really thinking, I need professional partners to work with. And he's validating, partners to help him. So this is what you start with here. You start to describe what it is that he's trying to do. So we think about it from 3 stages, and these stages can be change depending on what your product is. So you have the awareness phase, then you have the research phase, and then you have the decision phase. So for Robert, he has, if you look at it on the left side, he has like some actions, he had some thoughts, he has emotions, and then he has pain points and opportunities. And the pain points are not bold and the opportunities are bold in this case. So let's look at the awareness. So he is like asked to evaluate partners, or he is actually just thinking about, I need to evaluate some partners. So we think that he maybe just, so he's obviously using Drupal or wants to use Drupal. We go from that in that case. So he goes and directly just checks the technology portals, because he immediately, like if you're looking for a React developer, you probably go somewhere and you look for React developers, or if you're looking for Drupal developers, you would maybe go on Drupal.org. So, he goes there and he's in this awareness phase. He's like, wow, okay, this seems to be a good partner. They have a high visibility and they are professional and they are like very many people on Drupal.org. And but I'm still skeptical, right? That's emotional. Like it can't be true. None of the partners I worked with, like it's never been true. Like they've always failed, or like there's all these things that he's going through, and what his pain points are, like, whoa, it is hard to distinguish between the partners. Like they all have nice websites, and what are actually the questions that I should ask? Like I don't know, and so we find an opportunity, help him to find, like help him to go through this phase, like help him to make good decisions. So what happens then when he's already like gone through the awareness phase, he goes into the research where he really starts digging into like, now I really am going to find that out. When he's already shortcutted, he's already found like maybe 5 partners to work with. Then he really starts like checking references. Like, is this really true? Have they worked with a company like mine before? Oh, have the teams, or are their team really active in Drupal, or and then he goes through the thought like, hey, wow, they actually like, well, they are international. I hope that they speak German, because that's what he's thinking, because he's in Germany. So we are actually identifying already like stuff that we can start communicating to him in the face when he goes on our website. So in this case, he's actually really concentrated. He's really trying to find the right partner, or at least to find the 3 good partners that he want to work with. And his pain points are like, all the vendors, they seem to offer the same things, and it's really hard to find the right information. So our opportunity here is like, help him to find the relevant information fast, provide ready-made checklists or summaries, like provide like him with the information that he is going through when he's looking. And then in the decision, he probably does some reference calls, he does meetings, he reviews offers, and he thinks about like, oh, they are nice people, they have deep technical know-how, and in some areas they're even, they know even more than me about the things, which is even better because that's going to help me in the long run. So he gets really hopeful, and his pain points are still like, I really hope that they know what they're doing, because I can't be like spending the next 100,000 euros on another company and it's not going to work out. So he is still like, having these pain points. So, and, so we said like, be prepared for technical questions, because he wants to really know that we are the experts. So I hope you get it. This is like, I hope that I hope that we can look at one more, but I see Christoph has a question. Do you only use proto personas, or do you switch to real personas later on? Normally Robert is based on, in our case at least, he's based on a couple of real personas, and we have already put him into the persona. So this is based on our experience, what we already have experience in our work.
But you don't really do user research. It's just assumption.
So good question. You should actually, if you have time for doing that, you should actually do, this is based on experience, because we are already in business for 10 years. So we feel like that we know our persona pretty well today. But if you, for example, Christoph, do not, where do you come from? What is your background?
I'm a UX architect and a front-end developer.
Working in an agency or working with web projects, yeah. So if you don't have like, if the client does not know this already, if the client is unsure themselves, then you should actually go into doing some research on it, and you should actually do like interviews and all of that. In most of the cases, like luckily we are at least lucky that the client is actually knows it pretty well, So I want to show you here, the user journey for the marketing person. So the awareness phase there is like, he's like attending digital conferences, reading marketing magazines, LinkedIn, Sing, searching on Google. And what the marketing person we've seen a lot, like, is talking a lot to peers and colleagues, getting information from others, like, what are you doing? Sitting in like, bars with friends and just asking the others, how are you all doing it? So constantly thinking about like, what are other companies doing? What solution exists? Like, are the differences? How does it bring maximum effect? Is the technology good enough? So it's a little bit desperate. And the pain points of this persona is often like, I can't differentiate between like the tools that I'm being presented. So everybody's coming to me and trying to sell me the next perfect lead generation tool, but like I don't know so much about it. So for this persona, we should actually like do key, thought leadership in the beginning. We should try to like give this persona a little bit like of information, so that persona can grow in his awareness phase and become a little bit more educated. Why is HubSpot, let me make it example. Why is Google Analytics better than Matomo, or the other way around? So we can actually give, these little simple things and teasers about that. So in the research phase, it's again here probably going on Google, looking at the partner website, and probably checks out your social media things because the marketing manager is probably going to say, I'm only going to work with a company that knows how to do this themselves. Do they have the relevant experience? Are they modern? Do they have an energetic team? Do they have their own marketing under control? So we are gonna, like, just like the developer persona is probably gonna look at like, are we doing our website correctly from the performance perspective and so on? So we need to like think about that. And getting hopeful in the research phase, but doesn't have too much time. So opportunities here is like, have case studies for like ROIs, quotes from clients, success stories, because the marketing manager often wants to get like the promotion or the, so we need to tell the marketing persona that if you work with us, then you're going to grow. And then in the end, like the decision phase, like this is probably going to be somebody who's going to look for very many different offers from very many different vendors. And he's actually going to just do the meetings with those who he likes the most, and gets excited. And yeah, so we just, in this case, we need to like our offer material, we do need to be like shiny. So when this persona comes and asks for an offer from our company, we probably would give this persona a little bit more of a shiny material in the offer than probably we would give to the CTO, who just wants the direct facts. So you also like in your general, and this we've done for all of our personas. And thinking again about Icelandair, going back to Icelandair here, Icelandair is selling seats in an airplane. And you need to think about like, where is the person coming from? Was the person coming from an ad on, was the person reading Spiegel.de, saw an ad about Barcelona, and from the ad, they got really excited of going to Barcelona, but then they did a little bit of research and figure out that this airline is a little bit more expensive. And then how do they make the decision, So going through these exercises again, like spend time on it. It's gonna take you, like I say, a day to create something like this. So to your question before, Heike, you know, when you said, you know, how much time do you need for it, or how many people do you need for it? Like, if you want to do it really well, and depending on your size of how far you want to go, like this just takes time. Because trust me, we have to iterate on this very often. So is this helpful? Now, are you getting a lot of input?
Yeah, it's like, so you come back to it because you get feedback from the real world, and the real world is never like you think.
Yeah.
But if you do this for a client, help them to make personas, you only have one shot probably, and they'll have to continue.
Yeah, sure. So I wanna, like, because we only have 15 minutes, and I wanna talk a little bit about content templates, because we have already now, we've already now, like, we know where we need it, or we think we know that why we need it. And we know how to do the personas, and we know how to do the user journeys. And we figure out maybe in the user journey that, like, hey, the user journey for everyone is just the same. So let's just do one thing. Or we figure out that the user journey for every single person is different. So therefore we need to do different things. So let's look at content templates. Okay, we have a content pyramid. and like, I'm gonna spend time on this because I don't have very many slides on this, but I wanna think about, this is something that we have been working on, and if Anja is still here in the call, you know, she is often, or like, I'm actually going to show like a real template that Anja has been working on to create like landing pages. So you think about it like this: there's the implicit information, there's the explicit information, there's the call to action, and the supporting information. And now I'm thinking about, how do you create a content for a landing page? I'm going to jump over to one slide here that I did for the city of Reykjavik, where and I'm going to show you this here just so you understand what I'm talking about. So when you have a navigation structure, you have like, you have like some kind of a way. So for example, from the start page on the citizen, you go to building permits, you go to building permit itself, and then you go into the application process. So this is if you start from the start, right? So if you're creating the journey from that the person is going on the start page, you like think that this is the way how the person is going to go. But actually, the person is going to land just somewhere on the journey, and you don't know where. So it means that every single page that you're creating, you need to like create that in a way of the pyramid that I was talking about. And I'm going to show you the pyramid again, because when you land on the building permit site, there's information that you need to give to the person because he's already there. But then you need to give the supporting information, which is everything that the person maybe potentially missed on the way, that there's other things that the person can do. So therefore, like, when we think about landing pages, we always say every single page needs to be the perfect landing page, because you don't know the persona that comes on your website is most likely not gonna go on your start page. So when we go back to our content pyramid, we think about the perfect landing page. And the perfect landing page has the key points that you want to come across. There's the secondary points, and then there is the additional material, the special material, like the supporting information. Then there is some implicit information happening on the way, which means like, there are some emotions going on. You want to show, like, you want to create like something that you do not put in words. You want to show like photos or something. And I'm going to show you an example of that. It's going to go directly, where is it? Actually, it is actually, that was the process. So I'm just going to show you the template, but how you think about it, when you create a landing page, you just have to think about like, okay, when the person lands on this page, I need to, of course, give the information about this page, but I also need to then go and give that everything that is on the left side and the right side of the menu in the journey. So, and then you also need to think about like how much space do I want to have for each section, and where do I want to put the call to action. And I'm actually going to dive just directly into the template that we use. So Anja here and many others in the team, they are working on this templates that we have when we are creating landing pages. And if we use like we are doing Drupal services. So we want to have a landing page for Drupal. It means that if somebody goes here on Google and searches like Drupal Agentur Frankfurt, you know, that person is most likely going to land on this page. And this page here is not going to be the first page. Oh no, I'm of course logged in, which is not good. Like I'm going to log out. So this page here is not the not the start page of our website. This is actually a landing page. Oh, actually, because I was logged in. Sorry. See, I just have to go into a private window. And now I'm paying for this. This is stupid. Like I even pressed an ad. So sorry, Anja. Sorry, Rina. This cost us 10 euros. So if somebody searches for Drupal on Google or something like that and does Drupal Agency Frankfurt, then this is the page that the person lands on. And there's like some call to action. There are links to clients. There's like the people who are, you know, Diego here, who is here also. Hi, Diego, you're here. Diego. And there's like references and so on. So I'm giving you an example of like the landing page that you create, or when Anja and Hatta and our team is creating the landing pages, they have certain briefing that has to happen, and there needs to be like a communication between us all, so we understand like what is it that we want to come across. So I'm going to show you the process a little bit first. I'm going to go up here. So the process is like there's, you know, the marketing prepares briefing. There is like the owner, which is maybe the owner of that landing page, which in my case would maybe be me or Diego. We are doing the sales for Drupal. We define maybe the sections and fill in the briefing. Then there should be a briefing meeting. And by the way, this is not always happening in our company. So like, it's not always perfect, but this is how we would like to have it. So there's a briefing meeting, interview that should take place. The SEO team goes on it and does keyword research. The marketing creates the first version. The owner reviews the draft. There's a SEO review, and we go live. So we have a process, or there's Anja. Hi, Anja. We have a process, and like would like to like accomplish this, you know, every time we do a landing page. Like, so this is a typical briefing that is then has already been filled in, and the briefing is much longer. So it is like, okay, who's the client? Well, in this case, it's us. So we are the client. So the URL is there, the topic is Drupal, and the target persona, there's a link there to our persona analysis. In this case, actually just everyone. We are just targeting them all. The goal is to have create an awareness or a lead. We have a text style because in Germany, you need to think about like, are you formal or not formal, or do you like, there's all these different things in different languages. So there is some starting point. There is some inspiration website that I actually just took out in this case, but like, you know, what have we seen from somewhere else? Like Unique, maybe, Christina, I see you here. You know, maybe we saw something that Unique did something really awesome that we want to copy, or something like that. Or Drupalnomics, I see also the logo, Wolfgang or somebody from Drupalnomics here. So, and then we think about the technical requirements, about accessibility. So we just remind ourselves that we need to like have a structured content. We need to have like H1 and H2 and so on. We go a little bit through, like this is most of the stuff is this reminding stuff. And then there are the sections. And these are if you think about the content pyramid, we want to like, we have the implicit information, for example, the emotional part we want to cover by We want to show that we are professional. We want to show that we are diverse and large, and we have a sympathetic team. Like that we are like good people to work with. So that's why we put in the photos of Diego, for example, on the site. Now we want to put photos behind the site. We want to have a trust building quotes. We want to have a top class design, of course, performing pages and beautiful images. This is like the emotional part that we want to accomplish. But then on the right side, there's like the sections, like what is the most important, actually this was for, I copied it from, sorry, e-commerce or e-commerce landing page, but okay, doesn't matter. You know, what do we want? Do we want the reader to learn about us? You know, that we want the reader to learn that we build complex e-commerce solutions, integrate with hybrids and commerce tools. We use Drupal Commerce. You know, there's like all kinds of other stuff. There are case studies. You know, what are more topics and related services? So maybe the person also need the hosting and so on. So what we do with creating this here, we are basically going through the content pyramid, which is going to be like, you know, how do we build that up? So when Anya, in this case, you know, when she is building up this website here, you know, there's a reason why it has this structure from the content perspective. You know, why this is coming here and why this is coming there, and you know, why do we have a call to action here? Why do we have here a quote from a client? Why do we have logos? Why do we have this here? This is all based on the content briefing that we create for the sites. And this is how the process is then between us or the marketing. You know, in many cases, the marketing just still runs with it and just tries to do it, and then we iterate on it. Because we don't want to spend too much time on it, because Anya can actually probably say it here. You know, she will always say like, you know, I can't wait for Buddy to you know, approve all my content. Sometimes I just have to push it out and wait until Buddy sees it, and then I'm just going to change it. But I think it is extremely important to think about for your editors. If we go back to the editors again, you know, in this case, the editor being Anya, that Anya a little bit has a structure when she's creating the content, because she can then think about it. Okay, I'm going to start with the key points. What is it that, you know, Buddy and Diego want to say? Because when they are referring to the page, when they're doing sales pitches or something like that. So that's how you go through it. And yes, I think I don't have anything more about it. I actually like, it's almost 2 hours, and I'm amazed that, you know, so I would actually like to ask you, you know, is any one of you using any content pyramids, or when you are creating content, are you, do you have any good tips or something that you are using? Yeah.
Yes. Actually, we haven't named that way. I mean, this pyramid, but that's basically what we have done also in the past, but with brainstorming meetings. Like, for example, I gather the meeting, say, tell a little bit about what is going on. I invite the SEO person, well, the person in charge of SEO. And also I invite the UX person and a designer that we have, so that actually editors can get an idea what is possible with Drupal. This actually allows the editors to learn more and more. Okay, I want to have a call to action here, and what the possibilities are, or maybe the emotional part. Maybe a video is possible rather than a picture or a text. And actually this helps a lot to get these. Everyone is learning from everyone within just 1 hour maybe, or even less. And that way I think editors get more and more confident with Drupal, because they understand Drupal more and more by every new landing page that we have.
And Sarah, where are you? What is your background? What?
I'm working at a paywall. I was product owner for our content migration to Drupal, and I'm the head of content currently at Opera.
At what company is it?
At Opera World.
Yeah, at Opera, where Heike
Yeah.
is too. Yeah, nice.
Yes.
Nice meeting
But
you.
I am originally a translator, so I have like both backgrounds, the technical and also the editor part of it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I want to agree with Danielle talking about like we should use inverted pyramid. Actually, I haven't thought about that, but very good idea. I think next time I'm gonna turn it around because you have more content in the beginning and then you go down, right? So thank you for that tip.
I work at Rutgers University, and we're very small teams, and I'm constantly working with content experts in their department, subject, whatever. So we don't have the benefit of UX, and we use like templated Drupal type sites, but it's always like starting from scratch every project, because you're dealing with users who don't know anything about a website, and your technical brief is awesome, and that emotional section is also really great, because as the like project manager, you're always trying to explain this to someone, how to draw people in and how to create that experience. And while most of them are just focused on what's the WYSIWYG editor, like how do I get bullets in here? So it's difficult. So this is really helpful.
Yeah, I wanna actually. So if you didn't attend earlier, Christoph was doing a talk about, because I actually want to talk about templating if you're creating content. So Christoph had a talk about this earlier. I think at 1:30, and it was called like increasing the editorial experience or something.
Yeah, I missed that.
So I want to show you, like, if you go into the backend of Drupal that you provide for your client, we have created something like create content from template. And again, now thinking about like, how do I create my content? So if I go here and I want to create a page, because you're probably all familiar with Drupal, it's really difficult to start here with a blank page, because I don't know how am I going to accomplish building all this here in a nice way, but I also need to understand how my Drupal works. So I go here and I start adding paragraphs, and I have all these paragraphs that I have to use. I have like an accordion, remote video, 2 columns, test, teaser box, page reference, image text, like. So what you then can do, and this is a really simple thing, and we have been contributing this to Drupal, is to add from a template. So what you could then do, you could create like templates for the stuff that you're trying to build. So if you have here, for example, a generic news, it is this like a header, there's a photo, and there's a text. So if you press that, you just get that with a demo content already in there. So you can actually like start building on top of that. So this is actually maybe Lolo, I see Lolo is one of our developers. He's here in the call. I know that he's been working on this feature here together with Christoph and more. So here again, you go into the persona of the one who is creating the content, and you also try to enable that persona by having the employee here who is the position master of disaster, and there is like some lorem ipsum in here, whatever it is, like, but it's already ready there. So these are one of the things that you can think about. So look at Christoph's talk from today. Another thing that I wanted.
That's a great idea.
Another thing that I wanted to add to is like, if you are also doing another thing that we have been contributing to make the editor experience a little bit better, is also like that if you're here on the website, it's really difficult sometimes for Drupal editors, because now I want to take out here quick. So what I need to do, I need to go in here, I need to press here in view. This is, by the way, using the Gin theme, which is like one of the themes in Drupal. I go in here and now I need to find out where it is. And then I need to go and I need to press and I need to open here, edit, and I need to wait just to be able to change it. So what we have also been doing in Drupal is like to make it a little bit easier that you can actually just change it here. And this is also what Lolo has been doing here together with the 1X team. You know, like you see here, or you go in here, you actually just want to do these quick changes. You want to put the image to the left and you want to save it. And then the image goes on the left. So like, think again about your personas. And the reason why I wanted to show it to you is because here we are thinking about the persona. I am an editor and I need to create content on the website. How do I do that as simple as possible? Because in the end, it's just using paragraphs. So it's just Drupal with using the Gin theme and, you know, using paragraphs, but it's all really like thought about how can that be easy for the persona I'm doing it for. So I hope that that makes sense for you to understand like how we, you know, when we are creating the content, having templates and having this. We are over time, but does anyone have a question? Or how should we continue these discussions?
I do have a question from the very first part of the workshop. Is there a recommended time to spend on each part of the 10-step process that you described at the beginning? And this might depend on the size of the project, but like even if in percentages, like what is a good amount or limit to dedicate to each section?
So if I understand you correctly, you know, if we think about this photo here, like,
yes,
you know, so should we not to say the good 20-80 in the sense of like, or being the 20, 70 and 10% of the total budget?
Mm-hmm.
No, I just know that most of the projects that we take over, they normally are failing, or they are struggling because the first 4 things were not done.
Okay.
And I'm really happy every time that I see that at least the, you know, if the client has not thought about it, we that's okay. Like, and again here, you can also have a successful project without doing it. I'm not generalizing it, but you know, often, well, what's out that you don't spend hundreds of thousands of euros of creating something that nobody can use because things happen so quickly.
Right.
I hope that, yeah. So I'm really extremely happy. Like I am actually like, I'm just going to be a little bit thoughtful of time. I would love to spend a much longer time with you here, but I thought from my perspective, really good to get the input from you. And I feel like that this was like as good as we could do in a virtual situation. I am going to get you the slides. Let me just give you the link now before you go, or before I lose you from here. So I'm going to give, and I'm going to also tweet it or something like that. So I'm going to copy the link here so I can at least, it's here in the chat. So you can at least copy that and feel free to use this, and like everything we do is open source. So like, you know, feel free to take it, iterate. And if you iterate on it, you know, please let me know, because I'm always really happy to hear feedback. And tomorrow we are going to be in the booth. Of course, just during the time we have a booth on DrupalCon 1X Internet. And we are currently looking for product managers and people doing this stuff and developers. And if you're interested, and you know, this is a recent photo. We were so lucky to be able to do a grill party outside in September, but we have like 2 meters between all of us. So those who are in Frankfurt, we got to meet, which was really good for the soul and the heart. Yeah. So any questions? So then I will say in the good Icelandic way, takk fyrir mig. Thank you for joining us and being here, spending the last 2 hours of the day with us in a long workshop with a lot of content. Feel free to keep in touch, sending us an email, sending me an email, follow on Twitter. So have a nice rest of the evening. Bye.
Thank you, buddy.
Bye and thanks.
Bye.